Hello YouTubers, 2009 Honda Ridgeline, and we will be working on rear brakes. The reason why we're replacing it, first one is the brake pedal is spongy, it's soft, it does not give you too much confidence in brakes. Also, as you can see, this rotor is corroded, and usually the back side is much worse than the front facing one, so you can see already how much braking surface is left on this one. So this is the second reason why we replace. And the cause of the spongy pedal could be the seized caliper pins, and one was seized on the other side, so we will check this one too when we take it apart. So we have jack stands under the vehicle, we have the wheel removed. Next, what we will do, we will spray around here, around all the studs with WD-40, and also there is a screw. We will spray it all with WD-40 while we are removing the caliper, just to make sure that it has time to eat off that rust around, so we don't have a hard time to remove the rotor. So next, what we'll do before removing the caliper, we'll take a small pry bar and just go behind the brake pad and try to spread it a bit so we don't struggle too much when the slider bolts are removed to get the caliper off. I think it moved a bit. So next, what we will do, we will remove two 12mm bolts, this one and the other one just over here. Also, you need to watch when you're removing those if this bushing is spinning. It's 17mm, so it's a good idea to have the wrench on this side, just not to damage this rubber boot. So to get to this front top one, there is a hose on the way, so we'll need to push the hose back a bit, and we'll just keep this in place since it looks like it's gonna spin. So we hold this, remove the bolt, don't do the same for the bottom one. So now when two bolts are removed, we'll get this caliper out. Just place it on a spring. It's quite light, so I don't think you need to worry too much about attaching it with the bungee cord. It sits quite well over there for now. So next, what we will do, and we can check the pins. So this one is good, this one is quite stuck, so you might need to get this cleaned, make sure that it's loose and free. So next we will remove two caliper bolts. Those are 17mm, and you will need half-inch ratchet to get those out. Sorry for the interruption, my battery in my phone died. So I got the caliper out, I got the place where the pad sits cleaned up. So next we want to check the sliding pins, caliper pins. So this one we can see is loose, so what we'll do, we'll get this seal off, the boot off, and we'll remove the pin. So you can see it's kind of getting, the grease is getting hard, so we will clean it and wash it, and we will remove this boot completely. Don't want to damage it. So this one is different story, it's seized. So what we will do, we'll do the same, we will get the boot off so we can spin this bushing, the pin. So the rubber is removed. And this might be actually the reason why we had the spongy brake pedal. So now we'll just try to grab it and pull out. The other side was exactly the same. One pin was seized while the other one was fine. You can see it's all rusted. So now we'll also remove the boot since we want to clean it inside. Right. So next we will use some brake clean to wash all the grease out and a wire brush to clean it inside. So there's some brake clean. Next we will use wire brush and drill. A little bit more of brake clean. Wire brush. Same on the bottom. Final spray with the brake clean, and we will get the sliding pins cleaned on a bench grinder. Alright, so I got the pins in. Next we will just clean the holes with the air. Get rid of the brake clean inside. For the grease, we're using this silicone ceramic brake lubricant. This is high temperature grease. So we will put some inside. There's not much room, so don't expect that too much grease will go inside. Next we will lubricate the pins. You don't need too much. Just make sure that it's all greased. And also, before you put those back in, you just want to check if there's any cracks, holes. If there are, you need to replace them. If you don't have the new one, you can probably use some RTV silicone to get it plugged temporarily. So now we will put the seals back, and so we have a bit wider side, it goes on the outside, and narrower side goes into the inside. Just like that. Okay, now we'll put the pins back in. You want to spin it while you push it in, so it distributes the grease slightly better. You can see this one. Okay, so now they are nice and loose, both of them. So at this point we will get back to the rotor and remove the rotor. So first we need to remove this screw over here. We'll just use the impact tool. If you don't have a tool like this, you have a high chance of stripping this bolt. What is not the end of the world. This is just for installation purposes, so if you strip it, you can drill out the head and still continue do what you need to do. So at this point we should be able to hammer out the rotor and get it removed. So the rotor is removed, and I just want to show you what I was talking about when I talked about corrosion. So you can see this shiny surface. This is where the brake pad was actually grabbing. It's probably an inch, and it's supposed to be all the way basically from here all the way to here. So the working surface was reduced probably in twice. Also, before you throw away this caliper, make sure that you remove this rubber plug, since you will need to transfer it to the new rotor. Okay, so we're back to the wheel. Here what we need to make sure that we do before we install the new rotor, we clean this surface so there is no big rust sticking out. The reason for that is when you put the new rotor and the surface is uneven, you will get vibration when you brake. So your job will be useless if you don't clean. This is quite clean, but I will wire brush it, brake clean it. When this is cleaned, you can brake clean the parking brake pads, and we will apply some anti-seize over here just to avoid any seizing in the future. And another thing that we'll need to do before we push the piston back, to clean this surface so there is no big rusty parts and those two lips. So let me get that cleaned and I will get back to you. So next we will push the caliper piston in. At this point you might want to pop the hood up and make sure that your reservoir fluid, brake fluid in the reservoir is not overfilling when you push your piston back in. So to get the piston back in, we'll use Rotor an old brake pad. Just put it like this. And I have cleaned the piston surface of any rust and debris, so it's all good to be installed. So let's flush. It is ready to go back as soon as we have the caliper bracket and the rotor back on. So we're back to the caliper bracket. So this surface, as I mentioned before, should be cleaned, and same on the other side. This hardware that usually comes with the new pads was not supplied in this kit, so we are installing the old one. Just make sure that you clean it so where the pad is sliding it's nice and smooth. So in order to prevent or delay corrosion on this hardware, we will put some grease, not too much. We still need to remember that we're working on brakes. Brakes don't like to be too greasy. So now we will install this hardware pieces, and same, we will apply a little, just tiny bit of grease over here where the pad will sit. Some kits come with all the hardware with some grease. This one did not, though this one came with powder coated rotors, which I like, and those are the ones that I've been installing for a little bit, since they do not rust, they look much better, and as you saw, the corrosion is the biggest issue, so we want to make sure that they do not rust prematurely. Now we'll apply just a tiny bit on the bottom sliders, and at this point you don't really need to put the brake pad in, but just to make sure that the brake pad goes in and moves freely, you can do the test on the bench. So now we will get the bolts, those two bolts and those two, nice and clean, and we'll apply some blue Loctite on them, just a tiny bit, and we will put the rotor back. So here's the new rotor, and it's quite greasy out of the box, so we'll take a brake clean and make sure that there is no grease on it left. I applied some anti-seize just around the hub, center hub. So now we need to make sure that actually this hole over here is lined up with that thread. So do this. Oh, I guess before I put this on, I need to show you. So just underneath there is that adjusting mechanism for the parking brake. So when you spin this up, this gets your brakes tighter. So that's why we will have access hole in that rotor to adjust the parking brakes. Get this on. We'll put this screw back in. Now you see the success hole where we remove the rubber plug. So we use this to get the parking brake tight, just to make sure that it's as close to the rotor as possible. So here we'll just make sure that we lined up with that adjusting screw. Just do a few turns. Check. It's still quite loose. I'll do a few more. Check again. Still loose. We'll do a few more, and until we can feel that it's touching the drum or the rotor, then we'll just back up 1 or 2 turns to make sure that the parking brake are as close as possible to the drum. So I got to the point where I cannot spin this, so I'll just back up a couple turns and then we will be good with the adjustment. So now we will install the caliper bracket. Another thing that you want to make sure that is clean are those surfaces where it's attached to the hub. So we have bolts all cleaned and applied some Loctite. So now we can go ahead and install the brackets. The brackets bolts we will torque to 120 foot-pounds. I don't have exact specs for this vehicle, but just by judging on the bolt size and the size of the vehicle, 120 seems reasonable to me. So now when it's finger tight, we will torque it to 120 foot-pounds. Might not be able to get to the bottom caliper bracket bolt with the torque wrench, so I had to use a regular wrench on this side. The other side I was able to get the socket on. Not sure why this is happening. So now we can install the brake pads. So you want to make sure that they slide in easily. Some of those will have this work guide. Those please put on the inside, since the inner pad usually wears out much quicker. So you want it to be on the inside. So now when the pads are on, we will use a little bit more grease, and specifically we'll put some on the caliper, so to avoid any squeezing and excessive corrosion. We will put some on this piston and also on those 2 lips. And we'll get this on. So now it's time to those 2 tiny bolts. So the top one, you need to get the hose out of the way. And also when you get those tight, make sure that you check in this bushing if it spins or not. You don't want to wreck the boot, even though it's now all well lubricated. It should just spin. So those are M8, so we will torque them to 30 foot-pounds. Just use a tiny torque wrench, 1/4 inch. You need to fight the hose. Oops. Also on the bottom. that should be pretty much it. Last thing that we need to do, install this rubber cap in here from the old rotor, put the wheel back on, and the most important, when you get into the vehicle, pump your brakes, since your caliper pistons are all the way in. So thanks for watching, hope this helps. Please like and subscribe, and as always, do it yourself.